Cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves.
What up? What up? What up, world? We are back. I'm Anthony, aka Rasta, and this is Get Right Fantasy Network. And I'm here with another Friday Night Mocks episode. As you guys see, no Classic Mike. He's at the Fantasy Football Expo, so I'm sure having a ton of fun. He was going to try to pop on, but I think I see him down here in the chat. So I have our boys here joining me again tonight. So it should be a fun one here for this semifinal round 2. We got the boys over here, Mr. Phil Ruskin from the Extra Point. How you doing, Phil?
Always good, brother. Happy Friday to everybody.
For sure. And then, of course, we got Kendall over here from the Fantasy Football Tavern. How you doing, Kendall? Happy Friday.
We're doing good, man. Doing good. Let's get to some mock drafting. I'm excited.
For sure. We got football on the TV. Tank Dell with the touchdown catch tonight, looking good, picking up where he left off before the broken leg. So that's exciting. Hey, not bad, not bad. I think that's about all I saw, though. I'm not gonna lie, I've been trying to get everything ready, cooking dinner, stuff like that. But I will be watching it. That's
all you needed to see.
Pretty much, I was gonna say is pretty much it, right? So let's get into it, man. So like I said, we are less than 30 days away from Week 1, man. September 5th. That Thursday night game is getting here very quickly. Like we said, we got preseason underway. So we're going to be doing that second round here of our Mock Draft Tournament of Champions. We have the top 3 from all 4 mocks this week, battling it out to try to earn their spot into the finale to win that title, as well as the $50 cash. So if you guys are interested, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and get into the description. Go join our private sleeper channel in there. We have the links to all the mock draft lobbies. Next week is open already now. It's already filling up. I think Monday is already filled, and several other spots there, but there are some spots for you guys to get in. So we will get into that. I was late to the party here with my issues. Let's go with Phil. You wanna tell him what we do here at Get Right Fantasy? What we have coming up for our schedule? You want to
let's do it.
Run through that for me?
Dang, man. Yeah, let's go.
I'm tired of hearing myself talk at this point. That's why. It's too much.
Man, we got a bunch of stuff coming up. So when the season starts, we will be here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday mornings. Monday is going to be a recap and waiver wire. Wednesday, roster management, buy, sell, trade targets, ads, drops. Friday is going to be game by game, start, sit suggestions, and of course, all the live Q&A with all the shows. So one of the things that'll be cool, I know we've been talking about it, is we're talking about maybe doing like an East Coast, West Coast kind of thing. Rasta and I are both out west. We're on that good old left side. So we may actually end up doing 2 shows where we split the week for the start sits for the games. So Kendall, obviously East Coast guy, Mike, East Coast guy. So we'll be trying to make sure we get both coasts covered. So if you're looking to get all the games, tune into 2 shows. We'll stream them back to back, but definitely don't want to keep the East Coast boys up till 2 a.m., but also don't want to ignore those West Coasters, man. So yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. But let's get this thing started, man. I know we're a little bit late. Guys are hot. They're ready to start clicking some buttons and getting some teams. For sure. So I'm going to get this thing going. I know the guys are getting hyphy over there in the mock room. So let's get this brought up on the board. And while we do that and I get this thing started here, Kendall, you want to tell the boys here, or girls, or anyone watching, our viewers here, what the heck is a mock draft tournament in the first place? And why don't you kind of break down what we're doing here for those who are new?
Yeah, so our mock draft tournament, created by Get Right. So what we're doing, 4 weeks of mock drafts, Monday through Thursday. We do one pod each day. Top 3 as voted by the panel from here over at Get Right. We each get a first place down to a 6th place vote. First place votes are 6 points. 6th place votes are 1 point. So weighted average, top 3 move on to the semifinals. Each Friday, 4 Fridays, top 3 from each of those are getting put into a real life best ball draft on Underdog, and they're going to play that season out. Winner that's taking home bragging rights. They're taking home all the accolades, $50 of Rasta's money.
Yes. Come take my money.
Let's go.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. It's fun to give out, man. I really enjoy doing this. For us, we get to have a mock every night that we get to analyze, that we get to watch ADP change. We have a ton of sharp drafters here with us. Also, people getting in it for the first time as well too. But the biggest thing is the practice makes perfect, man. Come out, get these mocks, try to do different builds, and when we give that constructive criticism, again, you don't have to necessarily listen to us exactly, but what we're trying to help you do is understand how to build your teams properly, with understanding how ADP is in the pick that you are, which is why we randomize those picks just right before the draft spot. So that you can't just go practice in the same spot and kind of know where you're at. You have to feel comfortable on the fly. If something were to happen or you get sniped, knowing exactly where you're going to go after that. So that's what I like about it. It kind of keeps people on their toes, and gets them out of their comfort zone. Be comfortable being uncomfortable, as I like to say. Yeah, man, a lot of fun. I wish I could be on the other side of it, but it is a ton of fun just watching it, because you feel like you're part of it anyway, when you're breaking down everyone's teams.
And we are getting going here. By the way, you guys seeing anything? Already some spicy picks in the first round. Rafi Bomb, a returning champion. You don't see this in most Superflex drafts. I've done. I think I'm up to like 20 mock drafts today, because our yearly Get Right Ambassador League is going on with pretty much the exact same format, where it's a Superflex redraft. I've done just a million mocks plus all the judging. So I feel like the board almost can't go fast enough when you're doing like mocks on Fantasy Pros just by yourself, or you can get through a mock in like 30 seconds if you're really ripping through it. I'm curious. This is you don't often see Tyreek or CMC going before like the 104, 105. So it's interesting that we're going to see a non-QB start from the 1-2 turn. We'll see how that.
And I'm always curious, like we talked about it on my show last night, right? Like I'm always curious what those builds end up looking like if you don't start that way. And it does not mean that you can't still put together a really good team and win from there, right? I mean, we've seen. I mean, look, I've said this stat 4 or 5 times. You probably, if you watch the show, 66 quarterbacks played. Started. Give me a phrase. 66 quarterbacks started an NFL game last season. So. Look, you're not waiting for Jarrett Stidham, but it can happen. You know what I mean? Like you're not waiting for, the backups. I mean, I'll tell you what, Joe Milton didn't look half bad last night. He didn't look bad. I'm not dying to have Joe Milton, but you understand my point is like at some point, guys are going to have to play. So I'm curious what Rafi's team looks like. I'm really curious what Vince and Sinker DFS at the 11-12, both starting with 0 QB, what those teams end up looking like. But look, ceiling performances from the skill guys. So
and the chat is popping off. Obviously everyone's just excited to be out here tonight, saying what's up to everybody here. A lot of the folks that are drafting here. We got Victorious checking in on this one. He barely missed the cut here this week. I know he'll be back to get some more next week and try to get in round 3 semifinal. Hopefully we see you here, Victorious. So just get in there. Rafi saying, roll those MF and sleeves up, boys, and let's get this W. Classic Mike is in the chat down here. Awesome Eckler, who's in this draft. And we got Tresner over here in pick 9. So there we go. Mr. Heat Override, welcome here. I didn't know that was you, Tresner and Heat Override. Now I put the two together. It's funny when you finally get their sleeper handle connected with their YouTube handle.
Tresner was in my show last night. That dude has to come back every week because he killed it, man.
I love it.
He got the chat fired up. There was back and forth. Him and Victorious were going back and forth with some hot takes of their own. Obviously, I had all of my questions at the end. We had guys participating in the chat, answered some of those fun questions. So Yeah, if you're not subscribed to me and Kendall, I threw my link in the chat there. You can see.
Yeah, there you go.
Go jump in, subscribe to the Extra Point. I'm on Spotify and Patreon. And then Kendall, where you at, man?
Hit me up over at the Fantasy Football Tavern. Cold beers, hot takes. Have a good time over there. A lot of hot takes. I guess I've been the spicy take lately.
I had to come on and take you off with that blasphemy you were talking last night on the show. I had to pop in and just end that whole thing.
Hey,
that was
comfortable, my friend.
That was a lot of fun.
I think what's fun about redraft though is just sometimes I can love a player. I love like every wide receiver in the league this year. I've looked at entire boards trying to find. When you do like your best pick, worst pick shows, man. At wide receiver, I'm like, no, every pick's a good pick. I love all of them. It's such an awesome class. But man, every now and again, player that you like, the board ain't ADP ain't friendly. I think it's the most frustrating thing.
How are you reacting to the everyday news about Quentin Johnston? Right, because every day he's dropping passes, and then we're hearing stuff like, "Oh, don't worry about the drop passes. He's going to have a big breakout." The team is expecting big things from him. So, what is your temperature level on QJ right now?
I don't think it's changed. I didn't believe in him in my prospect. Right, he was a fade for me already. Yeah. I just didn't think it would translate as well to the NFL. Was proven pretty right. Do I think people can learn and get better? Absolutely. Jamison Williams, we kind of buried, right? And he obviously earned the respect in a way I don't think many of us would have called a comeback there. So do I think he can be better and earn a role? Yeah. Do I think that when they say like we're expecting big things from him, I think that's just a little hyperbolic when they really mean we expect him to earn his role as a starter. And if he follows an upward path, we expect good things. But he's still a borderline starter right now in a team that's probably going to run a lot of 12 personnel and your third wide receiver just might be a blocker at some point. So we'll see. I'm totally off on him. Don't buy the upside.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was pretty out on him last year coming out. He was one of the players that I was like, if he's on the board and I'm there, I might pivot. There was just other guys that I thought were going to have better projections. It's just hard for me with a guy that's got so much opportunity in the path that's there to just not believe in him, because then I'm like sitting there going, am I the crazy one? Like, is it just me? But I just did I've done a couple hundred best ball drafts at this point. About 3 weeks ago, his ADP was holding pretty consistently at about 150 to 155 overall. He's at 170 right now. So in the last 2 weeks, he has dropped almost 2 rounds. So I think the community is pretty low on him. He obviously won't get picked tonight here in this draft, but I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. I think we've probably given it enough of this show. But Rasta, have you lost anyone on your best ball roster yet? Rondale Moore out for the year.
Nah, never was taking any Rondale Moore. Just guys, that are just dealing with some of those little nagging ones, obviously the Pukas and, something like that. But we haven't really lost, again, knock on wood so far. We haven't lost like that, top 2, second round or third round, top 3 or 4 round picks. So let's just keep it that way. Like, I'd like to just at least let's start off the season with everybody, feeling good, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
The worst thing is to draft your team and then you lose a guy just right away. You feel like you're just climbing an uphill battle immediately. The J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb owners of last year. So I was on both those trains. So just to comment a little bit too on the QJ thing real quick, doesn't make a difference for me. I still think it's Chark, Glad, are the guys you wouldn't take a shot on, at least Chark, late in best ball. I'll take a shot on him. But pretty much I'm trying to, again, there's so many other good offenses. Like, I'm not getting hung up on these mediocre, type offenses. Like, I'll just go target, players from teams that I know are going to be putting up points. They're top offenses. It's just, sometimes we tend to overthink things, I think, sometimes, and we overanalyze by the time we get here to draft season. If you just draft good players on good teams and good situations, like, usually you're going to do okay. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we overthink these things and try to find too much value, whereas, like, just because I'm in the 4th round, I'm not trying to find a guy that, could have went in the first. Like sometimes you just need a wide receiver too, for your build, and that's okay. Like give me a DK Metcalf as my wide receiver 2 or 3. Like I'm fine with that. I'm not avoiding him because he can't be the number 1 wide receiver overall. I think we get caught up in that a little too much as well too. And my big thing this year is I'm also trying to just not buy into all this camp hype. I'm really trying to just hold strong to my just kind of pre-camp, I guess you would say, outlooks, research, everything that we've done coming into this draft. And unless there's just something completely screaming at you saying it's going this other way, I'm not going to read into all that best shape of their life kind of stuff. I'm just gonna
I'm with you because I think everything on Twitter, guys get so excited. And obviously in the sleeper chats, they're putting the photos and the videos
like
up.
Malik Neighbors. Like I'm like, bro, it is the Giants defense he's going against, right?
And he's catching passes with no pressure, in his freaking bicycle shorts with a shell. It's like, come on, guys.
And no defensive coordinator that's getting paid millions of dollars to try to stop you. So I'm just saying, I'm not reading into that too much. Yeah, granted, you want to try to find the Puka, you want to try to find the Kyrens, but for the most part, if you stick to your builds, understand ADP, where it's at, what players are going to be available to you. Understanding your tiers, I think, is very important. I also think people get too mixed up in, you're kind of talking about it pre-show, like, do you reach for someone or this or that? You were kind of saying, when you look at it, do you review your team and say, oh, I got this person in this round, so this was a good pick? Or do you look at it as, I have this guy and this guy as my wide receiver 1 and 2, and it doesn't matter where I got them. That's a good constructed team, regardless of where you got them, and it fits with everything else because you're not behind or have severe holes because of it. So again, maybe I'm rambling a little bit on it, but these are just kind of just some of those things that, just the draft tips and advice that I like to give out as these folks are going through the draft here. Like, these are the things I'm looking for, when you're making up your team. So.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into week 2, nobody's ever going to remember that you got Devonta Smith at the 504. You're just going to remember that you got Devonta Smith here just picked on RJ's team. You're going to look at your roster and go, I have Devonta Smith as my wide receiver 3 and be really, really excited about that.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that I think people get. What I'm looking for, Kendall and I talked about this a couple days ago, but what I'm looking for with these camp reports, in all honesty, is negativity. Right? Is a guy slow? Is a guy getting outplayed? Right? Like we saw Eric Gray last night. Tyrone Tracy was the hotness. Eric Gray outplayed him. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on for that number 2 job in New York behind Devin Singletary, right? But, when is Joe Mixon going to start practicing again? When's Jamar Chase going to start practicing? Jamar Chase isn't injured. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at more so than who's catching passes in their underwear, right? Like who's injured, who's not playing, who's hurt, like what's going on. So, yeah. Kendall, what do you like for some of we're into the 6th round now. We got a decent amount of guys off the board. Any builds kind of stand out that you like here as some of the players that have some good value?
Yeah, I will. I'll do my best to just comment on not where they're going, but just what they've seen so far. I feel like it's always such a tricky slope. I'm super.
It is tough. That's why I'm like, I just like staying in the other conversations so we don't have to really comment too much of what's going on, because I just want to start going, build it like this. So,
go ahead. So like the story so far is definitely usually the folks in the middle, 4 to 8-ish type of range, right? It's you get to collect value as it falls. Typically, you got to stay the most open. You can make some interesting things happen. And the 4, the 5, and the 8 with Richardson there all did all right, we're going to grab our QB, and then who can wait out the other going for a QB. Definitely thought it was probably going to happen in the 4th round is where I thought there would be a second little quarterback run. Didn't happen, right? Uno ends up going with Kelsey, wide receiver run. Thanos ends up giving in and taking Herbert. Personally, I think Rafi Baum actually has probably my favorite start currently, just because I am really loving, I think Stafford is really mispriced. Just from like a really simple, me and Phil were talking about this before the show. If we're saying that Cooper Kupp, when healthy, right, and we're only talking about upside winning leagues here, right? So when healthy, Kupp, is probably, his ADP is going to rise even more than the 411. He's going there with some risk based. But where we see Kupp and Puka finishing, plus what we think about their overall running game or their offense should be super improved offensive line, Stafford easily could be a top 5 quarterback without rushing, just because the touchdowns need to go passing instead of to the rushing. But with how abysmal their defense is and how improved their O-line is, Stafford's probably my favorite of just like waiting. I think there's an easy reason that Stafford should be projected higher than like Herbert, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence. Jaden Daniels needs his legs because Stafford is going to just, eat his lunch when it comes to passing. So being able to take him after all those QBs and making that stack work with like the Tyreek Hill start, so you still got your QB2 at a value, that's a pretty insane start. I was nervous with the Tyreek start because you're absolutely saying, hey, I can start with Josh Allen and have a massive tier break edge over everybody else. And that's a tier break that the guys at the 11 and the 12 just have no chance of overcoming in a reasonable way. And so I was nervous to see if that was going to pan out. If Stafford goes just before that, I think it's a little bit of a disaster, but he's pulling it off. Really liking that build. And curious to see where this dead zone of RBs. I've found that around 6 to 10 is a much flatter tier at running back than I think you want. Every player starts to feel like, oh, this is a good spot for him because we're falling a little bit more in love with the dead zone. But I'll be curious to see right now how 6 through 10 goes, particularly at the running back position. And we'll see what builds make some sense. But quarterback also, I just think generally, I thought it was going to be more aggressive. After Caleb at the 4-2, I thought we'd see a lot more kind of falling in step, and it's a pretty disciplined lobby. So that's kind of what I'm seeing overall. Disciplined lobby.
Sharp
QB's
guys
going
here.
late.
These are the top of the top so far. So, a lot of them got here without having to have those, super QB builds. They know we haven't been real big on that so far, like we said, just because there is so much talent there at that position right now. So, I like what they're doing. I mean, we only have one team that grabbed 2 quarterbacks with their first 2 picks, and that is pretty rare. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. You usually see at least 2 to 3 that are taking 2 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds.
Indeed.
So, let's see. One of the things that I wanted to bring up here actually was, I still have it on the screen. What Victoria was saying here about not a fan of a double QB as well as a tight end in the first 5 rounds. And I have that up for a reason too, because I think that's important. Once you kind of understand what type of build you're doing, you can't like combine all the builds in one. It's not going to work out. So like you can't be robust running back and take top quarterbacks and top tight. Like you just can't get top everything, right? So you have to understand where your holes are going to be and what values that you want later on, whether that's at receiver or out that running back position, like we're talking about that RB2 spot and a lot of those hero RB builds. That Kendall was talking about here, these running backs coming on 6 through 10. And the reason why these running backs are coming off here is because the wide receivers are just basically barren at that point when you get into this part. And this is where you start seeing, obviously we're not reaching over guys like James Conner, for some of these other wide receivers here. So, that's what I see as well too. So like, for example, like Mick's team here at the 105 spot, Jackson, Wilson, Adams, Waddle, then you're running back, and then you grab that second quarterback. My only thing though is, he is the one who grabbed Connor there. I still think there's a couple wide receivers I'd want there before my second RB2 and a 3 wide receiver flex. Granted, it is only half PPR, but in any type of PPR, I'd still want a little. I'd want that extra wide receiver there, and I'd also be kind of pushing, that tight end a little farther there, versus settling for like a mid-tier type, tight end like Njoku as well. So, and this is where in the draft that I feel like a lot of teams, like when I'm ranking and grading them, like, hey, your first 5 or 6 picks might be great, but then you get into this spot 7, 8, 9, and you just have to make that correlate and tell the story with the top part of your team and have it all round out and come together. And that's where a lot of people miss out, to me. And you want to try to get the most out of every pick and don't make a pick be a waste. Make it make sense for your build, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the teams. I shared this, I think, 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. And obviously the guys that are in the draft right now are listening. Kendall, Rasta, myself, Mike, the rest of the Get Right Fantasy guys, like we're the ones grading these drafts to, move guys to their rounds. what I'm looking for is ultimately, if I have a question about your roster, who did you pass on? I'm not looking if you got sniped. That doesn't matter because you don't control that. But I am looking, once you've had your pick, who did you pass on that maybe would have strengthened your team, right? So like if you're talking about taking a second running back over some of the wide receivers, me personally, I don't always have a problem with it if you've already got 3 solid wide receivers up top and then maybe pushing the tight end down around and grabbing the 4th wide receiver. Like Rasta, you and I usually build pretty wide receiver heavy, but sometimes you just have to take the value of the running backs there because like you said, these running backs are getting pushed, or excuse me, these wide receivers are getting pushed so high up the board now, and they probably should. They do have higher ceilings, right? This is a redraft league, so you're not worried about their longevity for Dynasty. But at the end of the day, like, do you want Devonta Smith or do you want James Conner? Like, that's a pretty easy decision for me, right? Do you want Devonta Smith or do you want Kenneth Walker, who went right next to him? That's a pretty easy decision for me. So I think it's a question of like, when the running backs do fall, is it at what point, and I'm not looking for an actual number, but like it's rhetorical, but like at what point do you is the value just too good to pass on? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I look at the grading is like, okay, I maybe would have gone a different build here, but you got some great value, or okay, you maybe missed this pick. So yeah, it's interesting to see how some of these teams come out in the end. And yeah, I don't really see any, like I said, like I'm not going to comment on the draft. We still got a couple rounds to go, but like I don't really see anything that stands out to me as like, ooh, that was a glaring error. I don't see anything yet, but yeah.
Yeah, just minor things here, which are getting just more personal.
Oh yeah. I can't. You know, I mean, you know me. Like I'm literally for content. I've been going through and trying to figure out like my best and what I've tried to do is really grade. Like I think this year more important than a lot of other years. I'm finding that understanding where I feel there's a small tier that I like or a really large tier that's flatter than I think, where it's like you can have a tier of almost 10 players in some ranges. And I'm saying, hey, this spans almost a round and a half when you include some other positional tiers. And I think it's completely flat. And so I'm changing my ideal roster construction based around particularly where some of these tiers fall, and that, you know, because we've already passed it. For instance, once you get into like the Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, Drake London tier, if I go down 3 rounds and I'm still looking at like DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, I think T. Higgins probably ends it for me. I think that's a much closer tier. It is a tier down, but I think it's not as far off in terms of, you know, upside. Maybe there's a little less consistency with some of those later ones. But because of that, I'm finding, hey, when I do my if-thens, I think I can go a little bit deeper at wide receiver where I can get through round 7 and really enjoy who I'm still able to take. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. And because of that, there's a couple picks where I'm like, it's just because of like when you do the if-then in 2 rounds, I don't think it's going to be favorable when I've done them before. But, you know, that could always be proven wrong. I'm curious to see with you guys, because you guys obviously do just a lot of drafts in general, right? We're in a lot of leagues. We do a lot of drafts. We do this for, you know, we do this in general. Is there a position, like out of all the position groups, is there a position that you feel the most comfortable fading? And which one is in punting, and what is like favorite and scariest to completely fade? What do you guys takes on that?
Repeat that. Sorry, I was reading one of the chats.
So with like running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, specifically in like Superflex too, because then QB is interesting. Is there a position that you're the most comfortable? Like, hey, I'm okay punting it this year. And what's the position for you that I can't punt it? Like no matter what, if push comes to shove, the tiebreaker is I can't be screwed at this position this year. I'm just too nervous about it. Like what is that for you for builds?
RB2. Even more so than tight end. I kind of find myself wanting to find. I want to walk away at least with probably one of the top 6 tight ends, if you include Pitts after the top 5, so to speak. Like I'm okay with Pitts about where he's going.
So tight end is your like scariest to punt. You feel horrible if you're punting it.
Not scariest like to punt. So as far as scariest to punt, to me it's wide receiver. Like I'm terrified to punt wide receiver because of how early and often they're going. If you feel like, oh, you know, you take CMC round 1 and then come back and, you know, there's Barkley or JT and you go grab him, and next thing you know, you're looking at, you know, Marvin Harrison as your wide receiver 1, it's getting a little interesting. Like it could work, but it's a little scary. Let alone if you take that a little further. That's my scariest one, and then my most comfortable one is just that RB2. So, I feel comfortable punting that RB2 position. If that answered what you were saying.
I think so. I just think it's interesting because that's something that it's not some people generally are just more comfortable with wide receivers than running backs or vice versa, right? If you were like the first 0 RB super a bunch of wide receiver guy in your league, right? That's just maybe how you're built, right? But year to year, this position scares me. It's not later great. It's going to be only great for me. I'm always going to take it, right? I think that changes year to year. Like specifically at tight end, some years you could say, no, I'm cool punting. Other years are,
right.
No, I'm getting a top 6. I think this year's a popular one where almost like the community consensus is I want a top 6 or 7. Otherwise, no, I don't feel great. I don't have a single sleeper late that I even remotely like. It's good or bad.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm always okay punting tight end. And I'll tell you, my sleeper tight end is still on the board in this league. He hasn't been picked yet. So it's interesting to see like when he's going to come up, and when he does, I'll share it. But I think right now I'm scared of receiver because I just think the ceilings for some of the top guys are just way too high.
Put it in the private chat. Is that who you were thinking about?
That's exactly who it is.
Okay.
That's exactly who it is. And so, it's not rocket science, but
no, I know. I'm just saying.
Exactly,
yeah.
Most exactly people were listening to the show on Thursday, so we definitely.
I gave it away last night for sure. I gave it away last night 100%. And when we do the next week, we're going to do league winners, and he's going to be there, at least for me. So, but yeah, I think this year with the running back class, like I'm actually okay punting it down the road a little bit because I think there's a clear tier break after 1, 2, 3, 4 after JT, Barkley, whoever you have is kind of that RB6, right? Like you got CMC, Brees, Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, JT. After that, there's a tier break for me. And so I think it's okay if you're telling me that Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, that's interesting. I'm not going to put Achane in this group, even though he's in this round. Kamara, Achane, they all have, Cook, Mixon, they all have similar ceilings and similar floors. Like, sure, there could be an outlier at the position, but you're not getting a ceiling like you're getting with the top guys. And your floor is relatively high for some of those guys. Like Kyron's pretty safe. Obviously, any player can get injured on any play. But I don't really see Blake Corum eating into a ton of Kyron's work.
Right.
Kyron's still the guy for me. But is he really going to outproduce Nico, Drake London, Chris Olave? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. To me, that's an interesting cross-positional, comparison where you're not going like, is this RB going to be better than this RB, this receiver better than this receiver? I think when you get into the cross-positional, it's really interesting to do a study on it. I'm always okay punting tight end because I've said this a million times, and I'm sorry, Thanos, I'm going to pick on you just a tiny bit. Sam Laporta going at the 3-0 in the third round is too high. He has to return his value. He has to repeat what he did last year. He has to be the tight end 1. Sam Laporta as the tight end 1 last year, if he were a wide receiver, would have finished as the wide receiver 15. So he doesn't even finish as a wide receiver 1. And so to me, that's way too high, where like David Njoku went in the 8th round here as the tight end 9, and he finished last year as the tight end 6. I think David Njoku is another player that, again, I don't love Deshaun Watson. I think if Deshaun Watson's the quarterback, Flacco was way better for Njoku. But like Njoku is a player that it wouldn't surprise me at the end of the year if he was in the top 5. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like George Kittle.
Hey, he was on my 42nd place team on Underdog. I'm just saying.
That's what
I'm just saying.
David
He won me a lot of money last year.
He was a league winner last year.
Only because of Joe Flacco, though.
Exactly right. But my point is that
I heard a stat where he was averaging with Deshaun Watson only like 8-point-something yards.
Yeah, where'd you hear that?
Or fantasy points. I think it was on Fantasy Football Today.
Oh, yeah.
This morning I was listening to it, but yeah,
that
8 points
stat last night.
Or maybe it was that. It could have been. I listen to a lot of stuff, so full disclosure. But yeah, and then 18 points with Flacco.
That was me.
That was you. Oh, okay. All right.
Credit
to. Hey, this is why you guys gotta make sure you guys subscribe over here to the extra point, man. See, it's in there. It sinks in, guys. You remember this stuff. This is what the research is for.
But look, here's my point in a nutshell about these tight ends. Dalton Kincaid in the 6th round. Could he outproduce Laporta? Yes. Trey McBride in the 5th round. Could he outproduce Kelsey? Yes. Kyle Pitts remains to be seen. So I'm not saying that Pat Freiermuth, Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, that tier of receiver, or excuse me, of tight end is going to outproduce the top guys. But is the variance really going to be that much different from that second tier of tight ends if you miss out on the top guys? Probably not. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, there he goes. Jake Ferguson in the 12th round. Dem Boys 89. I know
that's crazy.
That is insane value.
He was better off taking. I'll take Ferguson where he took Bowers.
I was gonna say, bro. I was like, you don't need Bowers. You could have snapped Ferguson and just been stoked on your freaking tight end right there, man.
Bowers. So since I wasn't on the show last night, Brock Bowers is my guy that I'm not picking. Like,
he's your do not draft.
He's my do not draft.
Yeah, who? Give me one. Just
where he's going with that offense, who's throwing to him, a situation.
All right, so Bowers is your.
I don't understand the value. Yeah, I think that's where just the rookie. He 108 in rookie drafts all day. I'm all for it. Dynasty, make it happen. But redraft, I can't get there. I got to see it a little bit first.
Who's your do not draft quarterback?
My do not draft quarterback?
Yeah.
That's tough, man, because at the right price, I'll draft almost anyone. Like, there's like 15. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? I can tell you my favorite is Kyler. Like, he's my favorite. Like, I think he's the best value, especially in 4-point. Like, he's just going criminally low, and I think this is what Ethan was screaming from the mountaintops earlier in the draft. You know, he's like, I think, potential QB5, like maybe at worst. So like taking him any later than like him going like QB7, 8, 9, like to me that's just a steal. I have so many shares of him in best ball, and I'll take him naked in best ball, just because I think he has that upside. And you know, you could build in those backdoor stacks as well too with Dortch and Wilson later on.
You can get Wilson really
super late. Yeah, I got both of them on a build yesterday, like just super cheap.
Yeah,
because I took him naked early and was just like, oh, I could finish up here in this weird scenario where Marvin Harrison gets hurt and it's these two guys for your fantasy playoffs, right?
Hey, wouldn't that be weird? A top player gets injured. You've never seen that before.
Imagine that.
Weird in the NFL. Guys get injured.
Yeah. So that's good stuff, man. So this draft is done, man. It was 30-second picks. These guys are sharp. It went through very quick, man. Just 37 minutes in, and that was including our intro and everything. So these guys are finished here now. Or no, I need to scroll down a little bit. We got one more round. Let me scroll down here. There we go. Yeah, you guys see that now? All right.
These are the league winners, Rasta. Don't cut these guys.
Oh, I was gonna say, one of my favorite picks right there. Tyler Algier just went off the board.
Yeah,
I think you guys were talking about that yesterday too.
We had two legit 0 RB builds too, with nothing until the 7th, and that definitely counts. That is interesting. I'm curious to get your grades on those. Typical, strategy says you can't do 0 RB in half PPR. You can always do it in full PPR, but usually half PPR is the cutoff. I'm curious to see how we think about that.
With the way wide receivers are being pushed down, especially in a 3 wide receiver super flex, like those running backs are going to be pushed. So you can kind of get away with it. I mean, the definition of 0 RB usually is not until the 6th round in a 1 QB. So I kind of extend that to maybe the 7th or 8th in a super flex. I think it'd be done. Like, I think Thanos did, pretty well with the 0 RB, getting Mixon as your RB1 with Warren there. It's what I kind of like to call almost like a villain RB is what I like to call that almost.
Took the RB2 in Dallas when he could have taken the RB1, though. A little curious about that one. Yeah. I'm all in on Dowdle over Zeke.
I'm there with
I think Zeke is such a fool's gold pick this year. It's like the ultimate, like, man, he could totally give me like 8 points, man. Super stoked.
My problem is I probably would have went Chase Brown over Samuel. I'm not that big on Samuel. Kind of avoiding him usually because either I'm taking Coleman either before him or Shakir later.
Yeah. Chase is like an elite 10th round pick for me.
But yeah, Chase is good. Robinson, Jerome Ford, I just think he missed out on all. I would have rather had all those running backs. Maybe he thought one of those 3 was coming back to him.
Did you?
I would have taken Benson over Elliott.
Did you answer?
which
I
one?
know you're answering in the chat last night, but all my
those were awesome.
Thank you. My game questions. I'll throw this one out here for the night because I know there's a bunch of people watching the show. Throw this in the chat. Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn, all three, will have less points than Derrick Henry. We call this game legit or bullshit. So the current Cowboys backfield will have less points than Derrick Henry, Zeke, Dowdle, and Vaughn. I'd love to know what some guys think in the chat. Legit or bullshit. So we did about 15 of these last night. Kendall, I know you're on the show. What'd you think of that? That was hopefully a good segment.
I mean, being a part of it, yeah, I love those segments. When you do enough prep, it's like lightning round stuff like that, where it's just fast. I just want to know. It's like applying your personal rankings a little bit. I had a pretty good time with that. I cannot wait to bring it back.
Those are fun.
That was good stuff.
I'm as excited as I am for league winners next week. I'm like more excited to get to the games and the questions because I think that's like the fun part of it. It's like, all right, we're gonna give our player takes. That's what people need to hear because they're gonna draft. But then it's like, where do I get some questionable thought or like, whoa, maybe it's not as crazy as
spark some conversation.
Maybe it's
some
not
hot
as crazy
takes,
as I
right?
thought it was. Yeah, exactly.
No, those are good. What's funny though is we used to actually do that usually a lot post stream.
Yeah.
So way back in the day, when it was when Dustin was still on here all the time, he might be watching right now. But he used to just love to do that with Tycoon and I when we get done with the stream. And he'd pop in, like even if he wasn't on the show, he'd still just come pop in on the stream afterwards, and we just hang out, talk football. And he would just rapid fire a bunch of questions like that, like who do you got higher or lower? You know, this guy or this guy, just quick decisions on these guys. Or as we're like in season, like so who has the most rushing yards, or name the top 3 rushing leaders right now. Stuff like that, just to kind of see where you're at and where your mind is. So I love doing those.
I'm gonna shoot my link in the chat again because I think there was a bunch like that was I got so many comments and like DMs today from last night's show about like, dude, we love that was awesome. So yeah,
that was really cool.
Throwing my link in the chat again. Make sure you guys are subscribed
for sure.
Every Thursday night, the extra point. But yeah, man, it's good. So I saw a player come off the board, and I want to know what you guys think because you guys know how high I am on this guy. But with Josh Downs going out for 4 to 6 weeks, what does that do to AD Mitchell? Does it change your opinion? Does it kind of stay level? Like, where are you guys? Because I'm going to start with you, Kendall, because I know you're probably the highest of all of us on Richardson. With the Josh Downs injury, what does that do for AD Mitchell more so than Michael Pittman?
Yes. Okay. There's 2 takes on them for I think these are probably going to be the closest to the sharp takes they get. It doesn't affect his redraft like season long projection as much as I think most people want to. What it does is I never thought he was really going to have a huge shot at earning a significant, like we always say 1A, 1B, kind of like the 2A, 2B, like really earning all the way up to kind of equal with Downs. I just don't think that's realistic. In the Downs injury, it's bad, but it's Josh Downs was already proving so much that it's just no one's worried about it. AD's still going to have to prove, and like in week 2, he's just not going to be the guy. What it does do is I do think it really raises his dynasty outlook because he's going to hit the field earlier. He's going to get more familiar with the playbook. The coach is going to have to get used to getting him involved in the offense, and he just will be earlier than a lot of the other rookies are going to get to. So like it's going to his chances to really hit like a year or 2 breakout in a team that we think is ascending. All flags are going to be up for him going into next year. So he's a huge buy in Dynasty because of how the early season is going to affect his ability. But I don't go crazy in redraft and say like, oh, I'm going to buy the dip. It's more of like a best ball, like, hey, I want him a little bit more in best ball because the amount of weeks he'll have an opportunity to actually grab some touchdowns starts at the beginning of the season, not halfway through. But for redraft, he's going to get on the field early. You're still not going to start him. And by the time you were going to start him, this isn't going to change anything. So his ADP is probably going to go up, and I'm actually going to draft less of him because his ADP isn't going to affect his projection as much through the roof in Dynasty, though.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Just to add in on that, I mean, Phil and I usually are the ones fighting over AD Mitchell, and a lot of the drafts that we do have a ton of them in best ball. Of course, just again, 4.3 speed, third fastest 40 time. Give me some of that in best ball all day, where I don't have to decide when to start him each week. Redraft, like you said, it's a little hard, especially with him, with that injury now to Downs. His ADP could shoot up, so probably get away from him. That's the thing that sucks about this time of year is all of us who've been drafting since like April. All it takes is one, X video or something to happen or a coach to say something to just completely screw up ADP for these guys that we like, late round. So then it feels like all that research and advantage that we felt like we did. Like I always want to draft my redraft teams like in April. I feel like I'd have an advantage over a lot of the guys, in our redraft leagues if we did it then. But yeah, as far as right now, with that, I could see myself in redraft not really getting too many shares of them.
Yeah, I
with
think
this Downs injury.
I think Kendall, you hit it on the head, right? Like he's going to get to play more. It's great for Dynasty, but also like it's going to drive the price up in redraft because it's one less mouth to feed. There's less competition. I mean, I like Rafi's comment, right? Like I think it puts Pierce more in play than he has been. Still probably is like a waiver wire stash, but I'm not going to take Pierce on a flyer just because of an injury. But yeah, it's just. This is what I said at the beginning of the show, right? Like I'm looking for injuries. I'm looking for, negative news because that's really what's going to help me make, some of these guys we have question marks about. Am I going to take the investment or am I just going to pass and, let someone else take it and be okay being wrong? So, yeah, I mean, there's certain guys. Obviously, we've been on, like you said, Rasta, since April because most of us are pretty invested in Dynasty. So, like, we want to see some guys on the field. We've been,
waiting for so long. It seems like so long.
For sure, man.
I wish I go back to the days where I didn't start doing research until like a week from today.
I got hit up. I got hit up today. I want to ask you guys this question. I got hit up today 2 different times by guys asking about trades in Dynasty, and I'm always happy to help.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just weird because they were like, should I trade the 106? Should I trade that? And I was like, hell, you
haven't done your rookie draft yet?
And then it hit me. I was like, you guys haven't done your rookie drafts yet. And they were like, no, we tried to like do it like right before the season. I'm like, that's a redraft mentality, right? But
right. I could see it though. Like, I mean, I guess they want to be part of draft season, but like the best part of being in Dynasty is the fact that you get to draft in late April. Yeah,
April, May.
I mean ours started like the Tuesday after.
Yeah, most of my redrafts start that Monday. Like it's like
Monday, we're already itching and chomping at the bit by then.
Dude, as soon as the first round's over, I'm like, all right, I have the 1-0 whatever, and I'm like, I know who I'm going to be able to. I know who's going to be there, I know who's not. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, like is that? I don't know. I mean, like we obviously always do ours, but it was just so weird to me. So like, do you guys feel like with redraft? When is your sweet spot for your redraft leagues that you want to kind of go and have that draft?
Go ahead, Kendall.
Timing wise, like it's a weird question, specifically because when you do as many leagues as we do, it's like whenever I can, I can organize them around the other 25 days.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like I need half my leagues to be really early because the other half needs to be all the way up into it just to fit them all in. There's those days where it's like. Because I'm a big fan of like, no, I know everyone's all over the place. We'll do a bunch of slow drafts. Like for me, redraft is like it's a sacred cow, if they will. It's no, we do 2-minute clocks. Honestly, feels too long for me in redraft. I always wanted that to be we're doing
especially
this.
We've been 30-second best ball picks. Yeah,
the pressure of like, I'm a big fan of minute pick clocks tops. Like I want it to be a battle of like preparation and wits along with player takes and making it work. And so. Optimal time, I mean, I want as close as I can to it. Typically, I want to say like the last week of August is usually my favorite. Anytime I'm putting it out, I want to make it like the second to last or last week of August because that gives me like an emergency day or two just in case. But that's my ideal time, I think, in redraft. But personally, I need leagues that are like, I need a few that can start the second week of August in the first week just to get them out of the way,
I'm in 2 slow drafts right now. Shout out to the ACG Veterans Charity League from our boy Jeezy. Hopefully, if you guys didn't get in this year, you can get in next year. Help support our veterans. It's a great little league there. It mirrors the Scott Fishbowl scoring and settings. So that's a lot of fun as well. So it's good practice if you're trying to get into the Scott Fishbowl to understand it and how to draft it. And then, of course, like you mentioned earlier, our Ambassador League is going strong right now. Again, just want to send out quick prayers and thoughts to our boy Wilson, Ambassador Extraordinaire, the guy that helped us put our intro together, the guy that's done so much here for the channel, bringing a lot of the viewers here have come here from Wilson, and of course helping us get and book a lot of the guests that we are able to get here on Get Right is from him. I just want to send some thoughts and prayers out to his family, dealing with some family struggles right now, just to not put all his business out there. But just so you know, man, the whole Get Right community, we're all behind you and sending our prayers and wishes to you, man, and hope you can get through it. Just know you're here. A lot of the times, fantasy football is a nice outlet for folks. You know, it allows us to just kind of leave our regular world and literally play in the fantasy world. But at the same time, it's not the end all be all. Family comes first, of course. And so just, wishing the best there. So I just want to take a quick moment to mention that.
Plus one.
Absolutely. So yeah, man. So other than that, anything else? Oh, I did want to get to this. Goss said, since we finished early, can we get some grades? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I've been trying to grade in my head.
I was like, we're not going to get grades, but I don't mind pulling up the teams and.
You want to pull it up?
I'm not going to grade them now.
This is what we used to do. Like when we have guests and stuff on. Let me get the draft board back up here. So we like to do this. So instead of like breaking down a whole team and going through it and all that, just pick out, and I'll kind of give you some time to think here. Pick out something that team that you see that something that maybe they got right, and then pick out something that they got wrong.
Can you scroll up? Can you scroll up to get the?
Yeah.
Those are kind of important rounds. Yeah.
For sure. So let's go.
That's good.
Right there, I think. Right.
I mean,
that gives us everything.
All
right. Yeah. So just tell me. Look at the teams. Point out something again, not to just put anybody on the spot. But just, something that you see that someone really got right. And then maybe point out something that somebody got wrong. So, Kendall, since I know you've been just over here calculating it, I could see the equations just in your background. You should just create a background like that with the blue screen that just has the, all the equations going by, like on Hangover. So tell us something that you feel that somebody really got right, and then maybe something they got wrong. It could be a different person or it could be any team. It could be a pick. It could be a construction. It could be kind of general. You could be creative. Something that someone got right, something that someone got wrong.
Okay, something that someone got right. I think one of the biggest things I look for is I scroll and see, okay, who nailed like the late round picks at a position and who didn't. Oftentimes when rosters are close, it's just like, hey, who made the most like mistakes, or it's probably according to my rankings, right? But who was kind of the most interesting there. I think Awesome Eckler did a really nice job. Only with the hyper fragile RB build, but 11-3, 11-1 and 12-12, getting Brian Robinson and Rico Dowdle. It's just enough picks I like, picks that I think have very similar, like they're flat tier all the way up to the backs in round 8, 3 rounds earlier. So I think you're just getting a good value there without taking too many. That was pretty fantastic. And I know the chat's already talking about it. Favorite pick in the draft is easily 6-7 to them boys. Achane going in the 6th round is just that's easily my favorite pick. I don't think it should have happened. It got a little crazy, but that was pretty spicy that he won at that late.
That's crazy. What about you, Phil? Yeah, go ahead.
That was the obvious one, to get Achane in the 6th round. But more important than that is the fact that he's your RB3, right? We've talked so much about, do you want Achane as your RB1? Do you trust that? Do you have, confidence in it? I think a lot of people would rather have Achane as their RB2. I know there's some guys, like I know Victorious, if he's still in the chat, I know he said last night, like he's very comfortable with Achane as his RB1. It's one of his top targets to draft. So that's fine.
He was one calling out the pick early, remember?
Yeah, exactly. So he couldn't see it. And to me, that's the glaring one, but I want to go a different direction here. I felt a little bit bad. I called Thanos out earlier because I don't love the Sam Laporta pick being that high, but I do like the fact that he was still able to basically punt RB and still put together what I think is a decent core with Mixon and Warren as your RB1 and 2. It's a little fragile, but I also think there's some ceiling with some of his other guys, so it makes up for it. Obviously, you have Josh Allen, so you can get kind of that rushing. What you're missing in the ceiling, for the running backs, you're getting from Josh Allen is kind of your hyper RB, quarterback. The thing that stands out for me is Heat Override drafting Hawkinson as his second tight end. I understand the name value. I understand the offense. They're saying he's not going to be ready until at least week 6 or 7. That's half the season for fantasy. You know what I mean? Like playoffs, most teams are starting their playoffs in week 15. So to me, like I don't want to go back on the Jake Ferguson. Let's just pretend Jake Ferguson had already been drafted because obviously Hawk was picked over Ferg. But like I would go. Let me try that sentence again. I would
rewind.
Remix. I would rather have Freiermuth or Goddard or even a Luke Musgrave, Cole Kmet. You know what I mean? Like it's not sexy, but if you're absolutely going to say like I have to have a tight end too, I'd rather have a guy that's available. Like Kendall, you said it earlier. I forget who we're talking about now. Oh, AD Mitchell. Give me the guy that's available for as of today for all of the weeks. You know what I mean? So like if something goes wrong with Pitts, I can put another guy in there. I'm not just clogging a roster spot. My hope, I want to say this and then I'll shut up. My hope for Hawk is he goes on IR. I think he has to. Like I can't see
he's going to
him.
miss that long.
That's what I mean. So if you have an IR spot and you want to take that as Hawkinson, that as your third tight end and have 2 tight ends and then cut one later when Hawk's available, I'm okay with that. But I just don't want to clog a roster spot when you need so many more running backs and especially running backs and wide receivers. So to me, that's just kind of a questionable pick. Especially a guy like we know he's not going to be ready for a minimum of 6 to 7 weeks.
There you go. For me, this is really going to test how comfortable am I with not having a quote unquote decent QB2. Because for the longest time, I've usually always been one of those guys where I want like 2 top 15 quarterbacks. You know, not necessarily top 12, but like top 15. Like I want to get one in the first, maybe the third. Or at least 2 within my first 4 picks, generally. And looking at the quarterback rooms for a lot of these teams, I mean, these guys really pushed it, which I think is the right thing to do. And then, of course, the corners making up for it, you know, kind of later, doubling up with 2 guys to make up for the gap that the split's going to have with other folks. But I mean, if I had to argue, like you're saying, Rafi maybe with 2 and Stafford or like Mahomes and Purdy, those might be the only like 2 teams, or obviously, and he'd override who did take like the 2 top guys in Stroud and Prescott. Like a lot of these teams, is going to be interesting how I end up grading them ranking them because a lot of these QB2s give me the heebie-jeebies for a lot of these teams. So it's really going to test, you know, the rest of the build. And I think that just, you know, it's a sharp room. They picked up on it that people weren't going after that second quarterback right away and allowed them to really fill in some of these wide receivers and running backs, and some very interesting builds. I mean, I can't wait to really, you know, get into this thing and start breaking it down, because I'm really impressed with the patience and the wherewithal that these drafters had to wait on that second quarterback in a super flex. And just to put it in perspective, I mean, I was doing the super flex on Underdog right now. I think it's the Pomeranian or something, or the Pug super flex right now. I mean, I've seen at least 2 teams in my draft take 3 quarterbacks with their first 3 picks in Superflex. Like some people just don't know how to play Superflex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I got 2 teams doing that, like that's great. Like I feel great because I'm getting so much value in all these other picks, but let alone now I'm starting 2 guys that I'm not crazy about, but at the same time, like they're still going to put up points. And these guys were wasted their 3rd round pick on a guy who can't even start in their lineup.
Do I need to share my statistic again, or is it pretty ingrained in our mind at this point?
66 right? Starting quarterbacks. I think we're good.
Yeah.
So I just like how you know, a lot of these guys did some good builds. So when Frank and I break this thing down on Monday and announce the winners, who are gonna, or not winners, but the folks that will advance, I guess they're winners. Everybody's a winner. But the folks that will advance to the finale, I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be another one of those mocks where everyone's going to get points. Like I think there's builds here that we all are going to like, and I think it's going to be all over the place. I don't think anybody really here completely ran away with it. Again, very sharp room when you're getting the top 3 out of all 4 drafts every week or every day this week. And I think they read the board, you know, really well. Again, a couple picks here and there, but for the most part, I just like what this group did, you know, overall. Position by position in their builds. So we'll see what happens.
Agreed. It's so frustrating. I want to give all my grades right now. I'm so close to complete. I do think you're right though. I think this is going to be a draft where We've had draft rooms where we're very like, hey, we all kind of agree on the top 8. Getting it down to 6 was really tough, and it's similar like the top 3 and 4, the bottom 3 and 4 in those ranges are pretty close across the board. I think some of us are just going to be bigger fans of some structures and are going to love it, and others are going to be like, I don't love that structure. I can't
Doesn't work for
possibly
me.
give them a top 6 because that doesn't work. So I think
Right.
it's going to be. I think that's going to make it really
gonna be all
thin,
over.
though, because the builds are so different. Like this out of other drafts, I don't think we've seen one in Superflex that was a true RB0, let alone 2, which I think caused a lot of imbalance in some of the builds. Which it's going to be pretty interesting. So it might just come down to our player rankings are pretty similar, though, even though we like different builds. So I think that's probably what it's going to come down to, is who nailed more of the spicy picks and who had a few too many of the, hey, look, a lot of us dinged this pick in this range. So we'll see.
All right, so Abdul, we're not doing another draft tonight, but we have drafts running all next week, Monday through Thursday, our qualifying rounds. Make sure you go into the description. You'll see a link there to join our private sleeper channel. Look for the thread that's pinned there that says 2024 Mock Draft Tournament of Champions. The lobbies are there. They're dated. It shows the time, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. You can get any one of those, only one per week, to make sure we have enough people, but it'll be 48 different people drafting again next week. Obviously, with whoever the 3 advance, they'll be out of it, but there'll still be 45 other spots to fill. So make sure you get in there if you want to come draft with us and have a chance to draft here live on Friday night. So there we go. And we got Brian in here saying the same thing, new draft. So just repeated what I just said, man. If you want to get into that description, or shoot me the DM and I'll get you into one of the mocks. Let me know what day you're available. Again, all of our contact info is down in the description.
Well,
and again,
sorry, Ross, cut you off. I'll just say as well, for guys that don't get in, or for guys that do get in and just want an extra one, I've been running Wednesday mock drafts on my own. They're not associated with the tournament, but it's just an extra practice. And I think the thing that people love about them is it's just like what we're doing with the tournament with 12 actual managers. It's not an auto draft with a computer. So it is a good way to see, like, how are guys thinking? What if I have to draft from the 112? What if I draft from the 102? So on Wednesdays, you can always DM me at pruskin. I'm probably going to run them every Wednesday until the season starts, to be honest, unless I can't for some reason. I'll let you know. But yeah, if you're wanting practice before you're in our tournament, hit me up and we'll help, because I think it's always good to get as many mocks in as you can against live folks before you go into your leagues.
The Get Right community is really big. We're all mock draft junkies. Out of all the different types of like fantasy communities, y'all very, very, very mock draft junkies. Go to the sleeper channel that we have going on. If you have that set up, I think there's a mock draft post there. If you have time to mock, it's like texting the whole community. Just hop in there and drop a post. Hey, look at a mock. If everyone's doing that, you guys are going to find competitive lobbies in 2 minutes every single time. And oftentimes, if one of us are available, even just on our phone or whatever, you'll see Rasta, Phil, myself, Classic, hopping into some of those mocks. So definitely use the sleeper channel. It's what it's there for. It's why we aren't all on Discord quite yet. It's like we're just keeping it in the app that we all know and love and probably keep open 24/7. It's just an easy way to keep the community connected. So I've been trying to check that a little bit more. But the more you post, the more other people will post, and we'll have mocks all the time.
I'm in there all the time, man. I get every notification. I see everything that gets posted in there as the admin. So I guarantee you I see it. A lot of the folks are going to respond in there. A lot of the people that are part of the community are also content creators themselves. So a lot of people that are going to be responding to that, you could take their advice. They're not there to steer you wrong. It is a good supportive community. We're still not super, super big to where we have, maybe too many trolls, so to speak, out there that are just, out there to just mess with you, that you might find in the public sleeper threads. But when you come into our private sleeper thread, man, it's a lot of folks that have kind of been vetted. They're part of the community and want to give back. So a lot of good stuff there. So again, if you guys are watching here on the Get Right Fantasy Network channel, make sure you guys go subscribe to these guys here on their private channels. The Extra Point and the Fantasy Football Tavern, the links are down in the description as well. Throw these guys a sub, man. They're giving you your time, their expertise. These guys know what they're doing when it comes here to fantasy football, man. We're happy that they joined us here on Get Right Fantasy. So do them a solid. It doesn't cost anything to go throw them a sub. Just a quick 1 second to hit that little subscribe button for them. And again, if you are new here watching us for this first time, hit the subscribe button for Get Right Fantasy as well too, man. We'll get you guys going. So I want to ooh, there we go. Love the addition of Phil and Kindle. As studs fit nicely with our group of DJs.
Absolutely love over
Appreciate
here,
you.
man.
Yeah,
It was we were like peas in a pod, man. When it came together, man. I was so happy to meet these guys. Just telling Kindle, it felt like I've known you guys for years already, and it's only been like a month or two. So, but it seems like it's been a lot more. So I'm going to give the floor to these guys here just to tell you a little bit more about who they are, what they got going on their channels. Yeah, I'll give you the floor. So Phil, just since you're here first, go right ahead, my guy.
Yeah, nice. So jump on over to the Extra Point. You can find me on Spotify and Patreon if podcasts are more your style. We're just basically going through a ton of Dynasty. That's really what the show's about. But as I've gotten into more content creation, it's really evolved into best ball takes. We're looking at obviously redraft season. We're making sure that we're up on that. So if you're looking for, a different take than what you continuously hear over and over and over, if you like the Get Right Fantasy channel, I've always got these guys on as my guest host. I've got some other friends in the industry, so I'm always bringing on new guests. Next Thursday, my show is always on at 7 p.m. on Thursday nights. Once the season starts, it will go to 4 p.m. Pacific because we all want to watch some Thursday night football.
Yes, sir.
But for now, we're still at 7 p.m. This week coming up, we will be doing our league winners show. So as we get into redraft season, really great opportunity. If you didn't make last night's show, it was awesome. We did the do not draft list. So you can catch the do not draft list. And then next Thursday, we will have the league winners. But yeah, check me out on YouTube at The Extra Point. And then obviously on Spotify and Patreon.
For sure. All right. Kendall, you ready for your close-up? The best dressed man in fantasy, rivaling our own Tycoon. Let's go.
Yeah, we got to get me and Tycoon on a stream together, man. That's gonna be fun. We'll fully like news desk this thing. Yeah,
for sure.
It'll be good. I'm loving it. But hey, guys,
put
thanks,
a tux on for that episode. Sorry, go ahead.
I might do that as well. The day we do it is we're not going to plan it. It's just going to happen. It's going to be like Dumb and Dumber. It's going to be a good time. But anyways, hey, thanks to all you guys who tuned into the stream tonight. Really appreciate it. If you want more degenerate fantasy content, do check me out over at the Fantasy Football Tavern. I know I've been a little bit lacking on videos as of late, but I have a bunch more content coming out in the next 2 weeks. What I'm really looking for, though, is we're still kind of small, not quite at 1,000 subs yet, not even at 200. So I'm trying to figure out what types of content the community that actually does watch us the most over here and Get Right. What type of content are you missing? What do you like the most of that you'd like to see? If you can, check out a couple of my videos and just leave a comment on what you want to see more of, what types of shows, what segments you want to focus on, right? What guests do you want to have and how you want that to go down? I don't know enough of you well enough yet. And so while I'm still figuring out what lanes I want to go in, I would love for it to be created by the community for whatever you guys want to do. I just want to hang out, drink a beer, talk some fantasy, and go from there. So appreciate you guys. Let me know in the comments. Oh, did Rasta's audio go out?
No, we can't hear you.
No, he's out. All right. Hey, is what is. Rasta, we'll figure it out. We'll
figure it out. We got it. But yeah. Look, for all of us here, I'll do what Rasta would do, right? For all of us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, thanks for tuning in. As we talked about, more mock draft lobbies are open, so make sure you get into that sleeper channel if you want to get into our mock draft tournament of champions. For everybody at the Get Right Fantasy Network, thanks for hanging out on another Friday night. Rasta, if you can hit the outro music, let's hit it and let's wrap it up, boys.
Right fantasy is the play. Marking nothing, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeve.